backup information. So since I don't have anything on here, I'm starting fresh. User, always creating a new user. Yes, they have the ability. I just label them 00 stock. Okay to confirm. Setup. We're self-propelled with a rear boom. You might get some guys that have a 3-point or something like that, but 99% of the time it's going to be rear boom. Same thing, except plus okay. So now we're ready to do settings procedure. F8. First thing I always do is go to general options. Okay. And I'll put it in turf. Some customers want it in gallons per acre still. That would be US. But most people want gallon per thousand square footage. And okay. This is the next thing I do is kill all the alarms because they're annoying as shit. They'll just beep at you for dumb stuff. And then I'm gonna change the displayed data. So our bottom right is applied quantity. I want the tank level. So that counts down for you then. Because that's kind of a calibration thing also, is reading our tank levels.
Yep.
Escape out. Now we're gonna do self-propelled. Start basic as always first. Reads the IBX box. We're on a Celtron system. There's no main valve type. We are 2 in each position on the Celtrons. Flow meter. None, because we don't have any fence rows. Manual for the filling. Hit OK. Next, we're gonna find the receiver. Start guidance settings. ECU S1 is just an auxiliary board, so we never use that. Polaris would be an auto steer unit, but for this, it's none. Some of them may be, if they're older, in NEMA. So we got on Smart 7s really quick, and we had to use an open port, which is a baud rate to get it to read to give us information. But with this update 454 or 462, we can read Smart 7 off of the monitor itself. Hit OK to confirm that. Found it, Smart 7 Terrastar. OK to confirm. Now we'll just go down our settings. So spot spray configuration. So you can have different options. So when you select at the beginning of a job, one is your general. If somebody changes a nozzle, like they got super variant rates. So like some guys do 2 gallons per thousand, they might throw a 1.0 on the back of it just to get it a little faster. But 90% of the time, everybody's on 06s, A, towards the front of the machine, 08s, B, back of the machine for your nozzle positions. And that's saved. Boom settings. Everything that's gonna come out of here is on 20-inch spacing. Some people request 10. It's more of a pain in the ass than anything else. 20 is pretty good geometry. Pick your section numbers. So this is for 1750. They have to take care of tomorrow. It's got the updated boom, so that's 12. So that's 12 positions. So you do have the option to set sections. So I said it was 12 sections. Some guys are like really old school where they want it like the click button to be like their old boom, where I would set that as 3 sections, so your left, center, right, and then put the nozzles in, how many are in each one. So 4 nozzles, 4 nozzles, 4 nozzles, 20-foot boom. These guys, I've dealt with them previously, want everything individually when you click across the screen. So this is 12 clicks to get your monitor or activate your nozzles. Then you change your sections to 1 spot per section. I'm just kicking all these down to 1.
These are all the nozzles.
Yep.
So you take them down to 1 because
1 spot per section. Because I'm saying there's 12 positions and 12 sections, so 20 inches per section. So that's where we get good indicator is boom length. If it was an 11 nozzle, it'd be like 18.83.
Okay.
So that's how you know you did it correctly.
Okay.
We do not need to do activation of it because it's already acquired through here.
All right.
Flow meter. Orion is the electromagnetic. Generally, the ones that come out of here are A3s, 2271, or most of our retrofit kits are paddle wheel driven. So that'd be woof times 3, and you're gonna get 2366 or 2365 on the pulses per gallon. That's important. It's tagged on the flow meter, because if you get that number off, because there's like a 906, you're just going to misread your gallon count, because it's counting the pulses per gallon. So it's saying that the paddle wheel has to go around, it has to click 2,366 times for 1 gallon. So that's where you get your accuracy out of a paddle wheel.
Sure.
No pressure sensor. Valves. So when we build that cable in-house here, this one, and we try and be consistent about which way the polarity is on it for the regulation valve, but we'll screw them up. It happens, and sometimes it matters how you plumb the machine also. So like a Toro 5800 is on a bypass, because that pump is so big for that machine. We have to bypass pressure off of it. So that would be a reverse. Standard is throttling, where we just enter our main hose to the bottom of the reg valve and push through. So we call that a throttling valve. Standard. So a good indication is you're gonna put the machine in manual mode and run up and down on the joystick and spray, and you'll see the spray get less, spray get more. If it's backwards on the joystick, then you know you have to switch your regulation valve direction. So I'm just gonna leave it in standard. But that's when you go out and you lose pressure initially, that's what it is. That's backwards, because it's misreading and saying that it's supposed to be opening, but it's actually closing because the polarity is backwards. Nozzle data we don't have to worry about. No wheel sensors, no rev counter, tank. I always put them to 10. 10's a fair number. And capacity out of it. So I know this is a 175 tomorrow. 5800, 300 gallons. Kubota, 200 gallons. Alarms, don't worry about that. Working parameters is important. So we used to trick that to get the reg valve to open a little bit with a minimum pressure. We don't do that anymore. I'm just gonna skip right down to the regulation valve. So this is that regulation valve positioning. You wanna activate that. Really good average on the 12 nozzle machine is 8 gallons per minute. And I always switch the activation time to half a second. So that's that. You get outside the zone, it automatically opens the reg valve a little bit. Next thing under working parameters that's important is section overlap. If it's like a fairway sprayer, I always dip them down to like 75, just because you're pass to pass. You don't need to overlap that hard with 120-degree nozzles. But generally, I always go 100% on perimeter overlap, because that's, if you have a created line, it's willing to go all the way over to it and clear it so you have 100% coverage. If it was 0 on perimeter overlap, it would touch the line and shut off. So you'd end up with little squares on it. So we want to go 100% over on that. if somebody's complaining it's going too far out of the zone, like their line is maybe really, really close, like 6 inches, 10 inches off, trim the perimeter down a little bit. That's working parameters. You can also screw with the opening and closing delay. That used to be a little bit more important, but now this kind of dictates that, helps it out a lot. Because people used to want to predict it with the reg valve opening and closing. Now that it's at a neutral position all the time, you kind of don't worry about that anymore. Don't worry about your guidance lines. No light switches. Device calibration is for Celtron deletions. So let's say all the Celtrons are plugged in. We don't know where the numbers are, like 1 and 9 are switched, 4 or 5 are switched, or we just got done cleaning them and put them back on. We would go to device calibration, have them all plugged in, hit OK. It's not gonna find anything, but I would confirm that. That deletes all the numbers. Once that's complete, unplug all the Celtrons, hit menu, device status, status of the Celtron system, and you would plug them from left to right, drivers to passenger, one at a time, and it'll buzz and turn green when it indicates it, and then move to the next one, move to the next one, move to the next one. Because the ID is on the board in the Celtron, not in the cam line. The only other way around that is to run an individual signal onto the cam line, which is 12 more wires, or if you had a 120-foot boom, like 80 positions, it's a pain. But the ID on the board makes it easy. You just have to run through this process. So if these were all plugged in, all correct, they'd all be green. You will notice if somebody's saying it's reading an error, or some of these are gray, or if they're graying out or maybe turning red, you might have to look at voltage on the machine itself. So if you're plugging them in, you know the Celtron's working, like it buzzes and you can feel it pulse. Look at that. Okay, yeah, 8 or 9 are gray. Hit menu, device status again, and you can see what the voltage is through the internal battery, which 417 is perfect. That's what they produce. But my supply is down. So my supply is junk right now because this is probably dying. You want that like 13, 14 without the machine on. The machine's on, it's producing it off the alternator. With the machine off and you're at that 13, 14, you know the battery's good. If it's like 11, 12, or even this, like the battery's probably getting shot. And these things are really touchy on voltage supply to them. Because if this internal battery starts dropping to like 3.7, 3.6, it starts getting wonky with some stuff. Go back to my settings, self-propelled. Don't worry about that. Correction type. We're always on TerraStar C Pro, SBAS. SBAS is the minimum quality. This is what a lot of people will do to trick them. You can make them read like they're reading a lot more efficiently. 4 is like a standard, industry standard for the HDOP alarm. That's the quality that it's willing to accept. Like some guys will tell you, oh, TerraStar C locks on in 30 seconds. Yeah, I can put it to 10 and kill the minimum quality out of it. That's not the way to do it. I generally like 4 or 5. That's kind of
4.
That's just for transpiring from limited GPS to full TerraStar data. So you can trick them. People will trick them and tell you how great they are. But there's a requirement. You can trick it through the HTOP. So I want the requirement to be good, because obviously golf and turf, you got to be spot on.
Yeah.
Like my A guys, they don't give a shit. I'll put them up so they get the banner out of them. Tell them what's going on.
Yeah.
But I generally 4 or 5. And then the last thing is geometry. So since we're self-propelled, you can see that it produces it like a regular sprayer. If it was a point attachment, it would give you more options and stuff like that. So pretty easy. Measure your wheelbase. So like your little sprayer with the 3 points, put your wheelbase to just 3 points, like a foot, whatever the tape measure does. That 6.4 is percentage of it. So if you got 5 inches, 5 divided by 12, and then put that in as your percentage. Measure that out. So for the situation on that, cart 0, because there's no application point. GPS antenna to rear axle. So where the receivers replace the rear axle, that's just for radiuses, because it's got to predict everything. You only got one. It's only got 1 point, and it needs to know the rest of the machine. Antenna to ground, obvious. Lat and long is something that happens a lot. We put plates on everything now. We'll have you mount a plate on top of the machine to place the receiver. We used to just set them on, and people like hit them or fall off. Well, they'll put it wherever most convenient. Well, you've just offset your machine a foot or a couple feet. So make sure from the center machine, your lat and long is perfect. It's generally, if you pick the center of this, it's correct. And that's your settings. So, and then they're all ready to go.